just in general, obviously, as a young lad from Wexford, how did you get into street art specifically? Or what first kind of drew you to it?
I guess I would have seen it first, like on the train going up to Dublin.
Yeah.
Kind of the closer you get to the city, you'd see along the tracks and stuff. And then starting NCAD, I kind of met friends who were into it, and they kind of exposed me to a lot more of that side, you know.
Was there anything particular? Because what drew me, funnily, I'm from Cavan. I used to get the bus up into the city centre, generally Christmas shopping, and I'd only been aware of bubble writing before that.
Yeah.
I used to see your sort of signature little face around the place. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's just when you see it, you know that it's yours. What drew you to that specific style of street art?
Well, I kind of got into it a lot later, really, kind of just almost by accident, really. And I never went the kind of down the route of like writing letters and that side of graffiti.
Yeah.
So that kind of little face felt kind of more natural to me, you know.
Yeah, because it reminds me a lot of the doodles I would have done in margins, the copybooks, different things like that. It's just really nice sort of, and it's really, really replicatable if you get me. It really suits. I don't know if it was intentional, the online sort of thing that it. Like I know the amount of people when I went to do an art degree, I won't name their names, but tons of different artists around my age. We all kind of had a drink recently, and we're saying, we were all inspired specifically by your little signature face. Have you recognized as the years go on? Would you be able to point at a face and go, "That's definitely in the lineage of your stuff"? Or
it's gas, because people, I just never would have known the kind of, that effect they had on people, and people used to come up to me randomly and say, like, you know, kind of give me praise or whatever, and you know, they found me like an influence or whatever. But it's just always interesting hearing that side from people.
I see tattoos of it all the time. There's influencers with tattoos of it.
People have sent me tattoos.
Like you're doing it and you're like, oh, geez, is anyone seeing this? And then all of a sudden it's like, geez, everyone's seeing this. Everyone's so.
Yeah, like there's, because there is that kind of, I guess, illegal side of it. But, and especially because I got into it a bit later in life, I felt like, maybe it's just a bit foolish or something, but once you're into something, and I just used to find it like exciting just going around. And I kind of got quite brazen doing it, and like in the middle of the day and that kind of stuff.
But the fun thing of it is it does make it feel nice when you get a positive reaction. There's certain associations, wrong or not, with bubble writing that people have, that when you see a cute little face on the side of the street, you're like, how harmful is this?
Exactly. And that was always kind of like a little kind of a backup for me when, anyone would approach me. It's like, that's just a face.
It's a tongue in cheek. Kind of moving from that though, I've noticed a lot of your bigger pieces, as you went on murals, canvas work, a lot of it focuses, even though it's in that street art lineage, there's a huge focus on nature, whether it be sort of Neolithic symbols such as standing stones, or I see even on your page volcanoes or canyons, different things like that. And would it be your background growing up in more a rural area like Wexford that attracted you to, let's say, depicting nature? Because a lot of the time street art, it is happening a bit more, but you associate it a bit more with an introspective sort of, the presentation of the person's personality. But I like that it fuses your little sort of signature face is often surrounded in a sort of like natural setting. And
I'm like a country boy at heart and grew up in quite a rural area. And so it was always kind of ingrained in me, and then images like was always had an interest visually, like with volcanoes and the kind of that power and darker side or whatever of nature, and just like structures in general, like things kind of sitting on top of each other, and like the dolmen or whatever, and it's just something that through repetition and drawing, and that comes out more and more,
That little sort of signature head is often like bearing witness to these sort of natural environments. In terms of space, I know there's an awful lot of, it applies to you, but artists more generally in Dublin, and I suppose in any sort of urban space, there's always a sort of, I think, conflict between the artist and finding a space to create their work. I know from following you online, you've had trials and tribulations between closing down studios and then obviously having to uproot yourself and move out of the city, even to create a space that you feel comfortable. I just was wondering, how do you feel about, I suppose, the artist's relationship to space and having sort of a safe space to create?
It's so important. Like to have a space and to feel like you can be comfortable there and come and go as you wish is just like, you kind of take it for granted, like a lot of the time. But I've been moved from studio to studio and space to space over the years. That years back, I just knew like the only way to deal with that or combat that is to have my own space. So I kind of started focusing on that as the end goal. But it's just like when you're in a space that's kind of under threat of development or whatever the reason is, you can't really fully settle in yourself as an artist and can't have things like that looming over you, because it's, you just want to be like your full self in a space that's yours,
Yeah, and it's getting very sort of heady, but I often see, you see discussions with artists, and it's often, creating is often a conversation with your subconscious. And if you don't have a space to do that, if you don't have, you might have space in your own home, but I know myself from trying to make art in your bedroom or something, you're dealing with housemates then, or your own life sort of kind of pours into it, and the next thing you're not really getting the space to properly focus on that. What kind of advice would you give to artists, whether it be that finding the space to create or just even mental block? I don't know if you suffer with that affliction, the creative block. I often don't even like saying it because it's almost like, you know what I mean? You almost give it strength then. But have you faced with creative block much through your work?
Yeah, like any artist will tell you, they go through like phases of that, And again, like a space to create and do your own work and have time to experiment is a huge part of that. But I found any time that I've been stuck or felt kind of stagnant or whatever is to just try something different. Like try and let go of work you're trying to focus on so much and do something completely different. And that's how I kind of ended up experimenting with abstract work a lot more.
Yeah.
And I just kind of gave in to that and just like the freedom of it. And then it just became a part of my work and what you see here,
When did you start using the likes of reclaimed work? I think it often suits street artists really well, because naturally the first things you start painting on is, let's say, you have to work around the shape of whether it be a building or a sign or a vacant window or something. Was it a sort of natural progression that you started on painting on the likes of driftwood? Or
yeah, like I've kind of, through like painting street art stuff and wandering streets, I just find interest in different surfaces. In terms of like woods, I was always drawn to like driftwood, and like through walking on beaches like forever, just scouring around, and there's just a lovely worn kind of nature of it, And I used to do a lot more, and I'm kind of getting back into it now, just collecting and finding ways to put together these pieces and incorporate the painting element as well. And I just kind of personally like to switch it up, like to have different modes to go into.
Get them thinking in a different way. But it kind of moves perfectly onto, obviously, you've done a collaboration here with Fresh Cuts on a series of t-shirts. How do you find, obviously, generally speaking, your work, people walk past and see. How do you find approaching something that's going to be on someone's body, I suppose, wearing it on their sleeve?
Oh, like I'm always open to different collaborations, and they're kind of like a challenge in their own way, But I think for t-shirts, I'm a big fan of t-shirts, and I see screen printed t-shirts and different imagery and combination of colors and stuff. So it's just another way of, I guess, kind of simplifying your work. And I could kind of tell in my head which direction I wanted to go in with this kind of collaboration. So
obviously, Fresh Cuts is an ethical and sustainable brand. I was wondering, just in terms of your work, and given that you've been reclaiming sort of material and that thing, how that resonates with you as an artist, generally speaking?
Yeah, quite a lot. I'm a big thinker. Sometimes I just tend to overthink and a bit too much, but it's like, how, as an artist, can I find ways to reuse and certain materials? With me, I find that certain fabrics feel kind of better and more breathable on me than your process kind of cheaper stuff,
Having worked here, the guy's always gone about sustainability as well as things being sourced properly, whatever. It should last. And I think that's something I didn't consider. If you can get something, we have people coming in all the time that maybe bought a t-shirt 8 years ago and go, it's still it still works. There's no point in buying a pair of shoes or buying a t-shirt that's sustainable out there, and the next thing is going to melt.
Totally.
Your feet and
Big time. I'm all for like longevity of things, and those t-shirts, the ones you have for 10, 15 years, are the best ones,
Yeah.
And so, like shoes, I thrift everything. I'm like a fiend in charity shops. Like I collect books, mostly picture art books, records, CDs, like clothes, everything. I just love the whole process of that,
James, it's a pleasure talking to you.
You're alive.
And I'll definitely be grabbing a t-shirt.
Yeah, good man, yourself.
Good day. You up Wexford?
Yeah.
All right.
Good stuff.
That's my plan.
Brilliant. So that'll be like, as is it down or whatever, will it?